Hey there, hello there. It's Jeff Cardone. Welcome you to another Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. Actually, it's not a complete Degrassi Unpopular Opinion. Well, it kind of is an unpopular opinion. It's about me dealing with 100 unpopular opinions / hot takes. Now, of course, there are some unpopular opinions that are obviously not mine, that's from other people, but some of them were mine and some were my hot take on a lot of issues. So, anyway, coming up, coming up soon will be I will be doing a thing about the greatest unpopular opinion in Degrassi history, from my POV and what you would believe the most. Because there's some from Degrassi shooting and some from other parts of Degrassi and all that. So I will try to have something like that. I think I might try well, I have to find out how many unpopular opinions actually make sense to put in and how many of them are like a hot take that people don't really agree with. So that poll will come up sooner rather than later. Excuse me. I can't speak today. Anyway, so I'll go through the 100 unpopular opinions and all that. First of all, the first one was the students should be blamed about Rick's bullying. And I basically put the fact that when I said it last May, I said that the students, had a lot to do with the bullying of Rick. They took Emma's campaign horribly and basically figured that was the key to get rid of Rick out of school, which failed miserably. Next up was Paige and Mr. Olander. Like, my opinion on why would Paige be with Mr. Olander? And I basically said that Paige was going through a crisis in season 4. She had a rape trial dismissed. Like, Dean got off scot-free. Paige crashed Spinner's car into Dean's car, got arrested, has to do community service, and has to work her butt off to pay Spinner back for his car, and then losing Spinner to Manny, and also with Rick coming into the picture. I also talked about a massive unpopular opinion is Emma wanted Sean after the shooting. Because, after all, Sean is the one who was willing to save Emma from being shot by Rick after Emma certainly ruined Rick's advances towards her. And the fact that Emma was happy that Sean was willing to take a bullet for her and saved her life. And it's like, it was just guilt. Like, she figured that Sean was the only boy who was willing to take responsibility and protect her. And maybe Toby would have done it too. Another one is about Emma warranted in season 6. I do make a few videos about Emma in season 6. But the fact of the matter is Emma was warranted in her anger towards Manny in season 6. And the fact of the matter is that, Emma had to be concerned. I mean, Manny was moving away. Manny didn't give Emma the time of day to talk to Manny about the JT situation. I mean, it happened steps from her house at a party that they should not have thrown. It was just basically guilt. And if Manny had talked to Emma in the first place, then I think Emma might have cooled off. And the fifth one was about, did they have to go there with a bus crash? I basically talked about, did Degrassi have to put up another Maya depression storyline in Next Class for the final few seasons of Next Class? And all that. And I just go like, it's just weird. I think they wanted Maya to continue her depression about losing Cam, but did they need a bus crash? The sixth one was Spinner being the best redemption arc. I mentioned a lot of redemption arcs, but I say Spinner's is the best because Spinner actually ended up, being a total dick in season 4. But by season 5, he knew he couldn't get his friends back right away. So he basically just worked within the system. And eventually they forgave him for everything. So he got lucky. The seventh one was about Emma's friendship with Manny and how basically I say that, Emma's friendship with Manny was better than what people think. A lot of people think Emma was a bad friend to Manny. At times she was, yes. I mean, Emma, my topic sentence about this is Emma had the right idea about protecting Manny, but had the wrong execution, had poor execution. So I think that Emma wanted to protect Manny from herself and didn't want Manny to fall down a dark path. And maybe Emma felt terrible if she did. The eighth opinion was about Maya and Miles season 14. I just talked about, was Maya really in love with Miles in season 14, or was it just a convenience relationship because of the fact that she envisioned Miles having done the same things Cam does and ghost her on social media, and she thinks that Miles, after making a social media post saying, "God, I feel so sick, kill me," she thinks that Miles is going to kill himself, and she's already been through the ringer once. The ninth one was about Emma protecting Peter in season 6 and how I basically am upset with this opinion. That, Peter was scumbag in season 6, especially like trying to eliminate Sean from the picture to stay with Emma. They have that street race. Emma at first is on Peter's side, but then when Manny and Jay get together and tell Emma she's taking it the wrong way, Emma dumps Peter off, and then Peter blames Emma for a lot of things. Number 10 is why nobody stopped Rick despite their chances. I just basically talk about all the times that Rick could have been stopped from doing his shooting spree, if you will. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, he should have been stopped by any teacher should have spotted Rick when he's in the cafeteria, should have spotted Rick in the hallways to let him out. And like Raj never checked up on him and made sure he left the school. 11 was Radish's gripe on Emma, which I allude to a lot, is that Radish, I think, had it out for Emma when Emma interfered in the Rick Murray situation because, Emma in Fight for Your Right season 2 had gotten Radish's bad side. Radish forces her to apologize for her stuff. She does, but then she also said, I have a freedom of speech, and if I get suspended for this, so be it. And, Radish is upset that Emma basically called him out on things. And called everything about her stupid crusades, not realizing that Emma's doing it for the good of people. 12 was Ashley's downfall being Paige's fault. In season 2, it was partially Ashley's fault too, but I think that Paige, with her queen bee stuff, actually forced Hazel and Terry to be on her side for protection. I think Hazel and Terry were probably going to grow towards Ashley, but Paige didn't want to, but Paige gave them support, and they were scared that they were going to be outcasts. And then Ashley turns off. Number 13 was Cam did wrong, or did Simpson do wrong? I basically talk about the fact that, who is to blame for Cam's suicide problems? Was it Cam for not telling people about his conditions, not letting it known, or Simpson for not seeing the signs of a suicide and feeling terrible about himself? Simpson did calm Eli down, talking about the Claude situation from Degrassi High. Next up was the OGs slighted, saying that were the OGs really slighted in Degrassi Next Gen? I think a lot of them were, except for Snake. But he's the executive producer, the guy who played Snake. So, he knew he could fit in storylines. But did he screw over a lot of people? 15 was Eagles in the Aftermath. I talk about Jay and Radish's Eagles. Who had the worst eagle after Rick's death? Was it Jay having a terrible eagle because he forced Spinner and Alex to not talk about how they got involved in accidentally getting Jimmy shot, knowing that, he can, if they talk, he'll be incriminated? Or was it Radish for the fact that he didn't really help the students out in the Aftermath as much, and Liberty and JT took him to task over a song? Another unpopular opinion, number 16, was Craig being a dick. And I basically said, well, Craig, for how good his character seemed to be, he just seemed to rub people the wrong way. And I feel that, Craig deserved to be a better person, but for some reason he wasn't. Number 17 was Liberty's pregnancy. and the whole storyline, and did it make sense? And it was weird how Liberty was not slut shamed or everything. I just think that the pregnancy was the backstory. We saw it from JT's POV, but not from Liberty's POV. That basically Liberty's trying to hide it from her parents and all that. 18 was Alex's role in the Rick Murray situation, which I talked about Alex, why she got involved in the Rick situation. And it was probable because of the fact that, Alex has to deal with her mother having ex-boyfriends or beat her up and all that, and then, helping her out in women's shelters. And should Alex be more sympathized? But would Alex get more sympathy if we realized her situation at home? She only told Emma, and of course, we at the audience know that. Next up was Zombie. Number 19 was Zombie Emma. I just talk about, Emma after the shooting turning into Zombie Emma eventually. And the fact is that, did the writers change Emma's persona from pre-shooting to try to deal with some internet hate from 2004? Number 20 was Emma and Manny from season 5. I talked about, is it possible that Emma got control over Manny in season 5, and she relished the control over the fact that, Manny now has to live under Emma's roof, and Emma basically can boss her around. And if Manny doesn't allow Emma to date Peter and all that, Emma can throw Manny on the streets. Yeah. Next up was Hatzilakos and Peter. I talk about why Hatzilakos, what was up with Hatzilakos protecting Peter at all times. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, Hatzilakos is the principal and letting Peter run roughshod. He should have been in trouble for releasing Manny's topless video. He should be in trouble for playing drugs in Sean's locker. He should be in deep trouble for, street racing and trying and doing all that stuff just to get Emma, and for putting Darcy in danger in a sense. Another unpopular opinion I did was Toby and Liberty. And the fact is that, people shat on the Toby. They say Toby and Liberty's relationship was terrible and all that. I don't know what my description of that one was about. But I think I basically say that a lot of people hate on Toby for having a relationship with Liberty. No, I also said that people probably think Toby should not have told Liberty about, JT wanting Liberty over Mia, because, Toby had a good relationship going, and all of a sudden he ruined it. But Toby had to, because he owed his dead friend. Number 23 is the season 4 deleted scenes for unpopular opinions. And I basically say that the deleted scenes could have played a lot more in our perceptions. The first deleted scene of Radich telling Marco and Alex that Terry's at another school and that criminal charges were not brought to the forefront, so he couldn't do much. And then the second deleted scene that Radich catches Spitter making fun of Rick's chicken outfit, Radich telling Rick he can go home, and then Snake blasting Radich for not wanting to deal with Rick. Number 24 was Snake's anger in season 10. Whose fault was it? I basically say that, was Snake right to get mad at the students after the Vegas night propaganda, or was it the school board, especially Audra Torres? Because, Audra wanted to destroy Snake once and for all, and Snake knew that he had to please his overlords. The 25th one was the punishment issues. I just talked about how inconsistent Degrassi students got punished by the principals and all that. Number 26 is a seemingly lack of sympathy by Mia over the fact that JT died. It's like we saw Mia grieve in a sense because, JT was taking good care of her daughter Isabella. And, it seemed like Mia didn't really care much about JT after JT died. And maybe Mia was happy that JT was gone for some reason. I don't know. 27 is the Sig and Maya philosophy. It's like, why were Sig and Maya endgame? And my opinion is that Sig and Maya should not have been that, because Sig was a jealous prick. Every time Maya hooked up with another boy, Sig acted jealous. But when Maya and Sig were together, Sig didn't really seem that that good towards her. He seemed cold and distant towards Maya. And I basically called Sig, like Veronica from the comics, from the Archie comics, saying that Sig only wants Maya because someone else wants her. It's kind of like Veronica only wants Archie in the comics because Betty wants to go after Archie. Number 28 was the college storyline issues. And I say that, what college storylines? Were they really needed at all? That doesn't make sense. 29 was trying to find the best characters to represent each letter of the LGBTQ2 community and my attempts to try to make sense of it, although I kind of suck at it. Number 30 is about Emma and Sean being endgame, and I say, did they deserve to be endgame or not? Number 31 is Tristan and Marco looking for love. Basically, those were two highly publicized gay characters in the Degrassi universe, and, looking for love. It's like, what was with their things? Number 32 is the Breakfast Club. I talk about the Breakfast Club in the sense that, was it a good episode? Did we really need it? And I think, yes, we did need it because it has the narrative. I mean, Sean, Jimmy, Toby, Hazel, and Ellie were all in detention. They all kind of like the Breakfast Club people, and, relationships hit. Jimmy and Hazel hit it off in detention. Sean and Ellie hit it off, and Toby got jilted, as usual. Number 33 was Darcy in season 7, about her behavior in season 7 and how appalling it was. Next up was Liberty. Was she over or underrated as a character? I basically say, do you think that she was overrated as a character or underrated? Number 35 was Spinner should have kept mouth shut. I talk about how Spinner mocked Rick, not that way. But anyway, Spinner talks to Jimmy on the basketball court after the Pain and Feathers go down and brags about being part of the Pain and Feathers, and then soon realizing that he fucked up and he needed to try to get his guilt out of the way. Number 36 was Spike's downfall. I say that Spike Spike, was prominent in the first few seasons, and then she just went flying down the hill. And was she having mental issues and all that? Like in season 7, when Snake refuses to go back to school after being cleared of the charges. She was like, don't let Emma do this, help you out, because she gets an eating disorder. Number 37 is Anya's timidness. I basically say that Sav is the cause of this because, Sav and Holly J both are the cause of Anya being so timid and being a follower. Holly J basically making Anya her lapdog, and then also Sav refusing to tell his parents about Anya, even though Anya was willing to conform. Number 38 is Fitz from season 13, and the fact that why Fitz was even in season 13 after what he did to shoot Adam, or probably shoot Drew. I don't know if Fitz actually meant to shoot Adam or he was aiming for Drew. But why was he in season 13, and why was he out of jail? Next was a major one, is Rick. Should we be sympathetic towards him? And I basically say that, in my mind, no, I wouldn't be sympathizing. He had everything to gain with sympathy, but he screwed it up by being stupid and bringing a gun to the school. If he had not brought a gun to the school, I think he was safe. Number 40 is Hatzalakos' role in the whole Degrassi universe. Excuse me a sec. I'm just making sure that I get the numbers right. So you'll probably hear something in the background. Hold on a sec. Did it pause? Okay, good. So Hatzalakos' not my topic, is, what her role was in the Spinner and Jay thing in season 4. About the fact that she was blaming Spinner for the death of Rick and the shooting of Jimmy. Well, Rick's death is like, why did she do that? 41 is Zoe's role in Degrassi Nudes. I basically talk about why Zoe was such a dick in Degrassi Nudes the season after she was raped by Luke Baker and his associate, and why Zoe probably did it. Um, I talk about Emma's eating disorder continually and saying why it wasn't like brought up as much. I think I don't know what I said about that one. Well, of course, the playlist. We'll be talking about it. Number 43 is Shane in season 3. I talk about so many mistakes that Degrassi made in this whole thing and why Shane wasn't mentioned after season 3. Because this was a blown chance by Degrassi to bring Emma's real father in the situation. But I think they were setting up that Emma only had one father, and that being Snake. I talk in a controversial CDUO, of course, Degrassi Unpopular Opinions, about the lesbians in the Degrassi universe and saying that it was shocking, especially with Paige and Zoe. It's like we had no advance notice that they were dealing with girls. And I don't remember if I said it in the episode about the fact that Paige, part of my feeling is that Paige was so hurt by guys. Season 4, that guys hurt her, like Dean, Spinner, Mr. Olander, and Rick even, that she swore off guys and wanted to go towards girls. I don't know. And why lesbians, we don't have much like foreshadowing. I talk about in number 45 Toby's downfall, about why Toby had a downfall and all that, and it's just the writer's fault. Next, it was Rick's dad. Was he a reason for Rick's temper? And I basically say I doubt Rick's dad was the reason why Rick had a bad temper. I think it was Paige who was part of this the whole time. I mean, Paige did have an anti-Rick rhetoric in seasons 3 and 4, and it made Rick angry, especially when he comes back to the school. He blames Paige for trying to put people's opinions in people's brains. I talk about Spinner's forgiveness and should Spinner have been forgiven about what he did about Jimmy and all that. And I said, yeah, he should. I mean, the guy needed forgiveness, and he was trying to fix his problem, unlike Jay. Number 48 was the school's out philosophy, Tessa, Joey, and Caitlin, and how, that relationship, that three-way was. I also talk about Drew and Bianca, my opinions about that relationship, thinking that, Bianca played Drew like a fiddle because Bianca and Fitz may have worked together. Because Bianca may have had Drew, I think that Bianca was bad for Drew, but in the end, I mean, Drew was good for Bianca in a sense because of Drew's mom. My 50th was, did they have to kill off these guys? And I talk about JT and Adam's departures from the show. Is like, okay, they can leave the show, but to kill them off, literally? Yeah, right. I know Ryan Cooley, a.k.a. JT, said that, and the actress who played Adam wanted to leave, but they could have done better. Next up was Lake. I put a C-duel about was Lakehurst not unnecessary? And the fact is that a lot of people said, well, Lakehurst merging into Degrassi after what happened to JT, was that necessary in season 7? Possibly because they were thinking about extending Degrassi past the 7th season mark that CTV, I think, believe was going to happen. And, with Emma's group being graduating and all that. Another C-duel I did was Radish's hate should be lower, because I talk about how a lot of people hate on Radish for what he did in season 4 about the Rick situation. And I basically say that although Radish did a lot of things wrong, there were plenty of people who should have more hate towards the Rick Murray situation, especially Rick himself and the 3 bullies who were there to the end, Spinner, Jay, and Alex. I talk about a C-duel about Pill. Pill coming in season 14 after Snake's lack of involvement in Degrassi Nudes. And, I am upset with Pill being such a dick in a sense. Why did she have to be an idiot? Like, what? Were her policies okay, or was she just being stupid, especially with the no affection policy that led to her downfall, possibly? I talk about Emma the feminist and Emma's feminism. Was it right and all that? I also talk about the fact that Emma was not the straw that broke Rick's back, because there was a post that said that Emma was the major reason, was the last straw for Rick before he got the gun to the school. And I basically said Emma could not have been the straw that broke Rick's back. I mean, after all, he went after Paige first. He would have went after Emma first if that was the truth. I talk about administration-sized boo-boos and how each principal had major flaws and all that. Who had the biggest flaw, I think. Next, I talked about Nick should have been JT's killer and how Degrassi could have had that because Nick was the obvious person who would go after JT. I mean, he was a jealous ex-boyfriend of Mia who wanted JT hurt. And I think I talked about if it was possible that Nick may have sent Johnny DeMarco and that Drake Lampley kid to try to cause trouble for JT. And why Nick is never mentioned again after that episode. He thinks that, Nick had something to do with it and he went away for it. Number 58 was Emma's trauma from the start of Next Gen. And I basically say that Emma had trauma from the start of Next Gen because of the catfishing thing. It was not brought up again intentionally. Well, maybe unintentionally when Liberty and Armstrong, that situation. And I feel that Emma may have overreacted. But there is a reason because of the fact that she got catfished and she didn't want Liberty getting hurt. Number 60 was about Peter's love interest and did they screw him over or did he screw them over? And saying that every girl that Peter loves actually ends up dumping him off for some dumb reason. From Manny to Emma to Darcy to Mia, like he couldn't catch a break. I also did a CDUO / hot take. I think it was a hot take about Radish's one main moment of glory. And the fact of the matter that the Degrassi community really hated Radish for the fact that he didn't do a lot of things positively. And I say, well, he did this positively. 62 was about Caitlin and Joey in Next Gen and the relationship. Like, why that relationship didn't last. I did one about Palex, Paige and Alex, about that relationship and why it seemed to be wrong in a sense. I also talked about Tristan and Maya season 13 and their relationship. The fact that was Tristan right to destroy Maya in season 13 because Maya told on Mr. Yates and and Tristan was mad saying that Maya was just jealous, especially with Miles saying that you have guys around you, why can't I have one? And how Tristan was such a douchebag that a lot of people hated him. The 65th one was about an article that someone said was that there was a Degrassi extra who was a culprit, who kind of looked like Manny but wasn't really Manny. But, she tipped with her board reaction. She kind of did tip off what she was doing. But I say, well, that can't be happening. And here's the reason why. I talk about Toby's eating disorder, about why it was glossed over and how big it was in the Degrassi universe. I talk about Emma's eating disorder, like when is the official date of her eating disorder? Was it in the first few seasons when the actress Mary McDonald actually had an eating disorder, or season 3? All that. I talk about Emma's issues in season 6 storyline had dark beginnings. I don't know what the title. I don't know how I described it, so I'm just gonna check for a second. I'm just trying to get trying to dissect why Emma acted out in season 6 post JT stabbing. Something about dark beginnings. I think this was my first attempt to talk about Emma's issues in season 6, maybe because of Rick's actions towards her in season 4. 69th one is Mia the bad mom, or was she? I talk about, was Mia a bad mom or that? Because, it seemed that Mia's mother was taking good care of Isabella. Mia wasn't really doing much for Izzy. And Lucas was of no help at the start. And then Mia, goes off to Paris. I don't know if it was ever established if Isabella went to Paris with Mia or not. I don't think she did. I think she was stuck with Mia's mom. I also talk about CDUO about Jack Simpson's existence, about, why do people not say that he exists? 71 was Snake's role in School's Out. Was he kind of because someone said that Snake looked like an incel in a sense, because he wasn't comfortable with things and he just acted like a jerk. He didn't really have a relationship and all that. And whereas Wheels and Joey did, and maybe he was jealous and all that. did he have to blast Joey for what he did? And I say, well, yeah, he had to. I did a CDUO based on Emma's line in season 5 premiere about the fact that she hasn't had a boy since Hurricane Sean blew through her emotional trailer park. Was it basically the point that Emma said that because she figured Sean was her last true love, maybe because of the shooting, saving her butt from the shooting, obviously, or the fact that she really liked Sean, but the whole Chris and Emma's relationship was nothing to her. I also did a digressing popular opinion about Paige's roles, efforts in Time Stand Still. The fact that she apologized for things and calmed Rick down. It's like it was underrated because, things could have been a whole lot different if Paige didn't calm down Rick. But Rick did shoot people, so. Another great unpopular opinion I did was Emma's need for a boyfriend was more than we anticipated. Later on, I did do one similar to that, but in a different context. But this context was that Emma wanted a boyfriend because of the Rick situation and the fact that she had no boyfriend to protect her from Rick's advances when Emma was left on her own from Paige's clique. The 75th one was Degrassi going Hollywood and Manhattan as well. Were these two summer movies, as people say, necessary? And I say it's possible they were necessary. Also, I talk about did Snake have a chance to become principal in season 4 after Raj was dumped off? And why Snake possibly did not become principal because he didn't want to be like his predecessor. Who knows? I also talk about Esme's loose ends, about why I was upset that Esme's characterization was taken out in the series finale, that there was a lot of open-ended questions about Esme's stuff. Is that what she would be diagnosed with? How she would handle the downfall, the outcome of her blasting Sig with a motorcycle helmet. I talked about Craig's downfall in season 2, and that Craig, had a good character, but once his dad died, it's like he dipped down to weird territory. Next was Tristan's line in I'm Sleep. When I talk about the line, Tristan says, anyone for pizza, and the fact that maybe Tristan said that on purpose to divert people from paying attention to Maya because of Tristan and Maya's issues, especially Tristan's with Maya, and that was an attempt to destroy Maya in a sense, and how people were upset with that line. Number 80 was abortion in the Degrassi universe. And I talked about the abortion topic within the Degrassi universe and how people handled it. 81 was Emma not telling people about Rick's issues in season 4. How it seemed that Emma didn't tell anyone about Rick's issues with the bullies, even though she knew what was going on. Was she going to tell someone? And I basically said that, I said this a couple of years ago, that someone said that, I think Emma was going to tell Snake everything after the school day in Time Stand Still, but of course the shooting prevented that from happening. I also talked about Degrassi Don't Look Back. Was it a good or bad summer movie, or was it necessary? And I say that not a lot of things came from that. I mean, it was like kind of weird. And Next Class really ignored all the plot lines. I did a CDUO about someone blaming JT for his own demise. And I say that, someone blaming JT for his own death. Because the person said that JT should not have gone after Liberty and should have just left Liberty alone. Think about Liberty. Just go with Mia and everything would be all hunky-dory. I also did, number 84 was Maya's depression and being failed at by everyone else. I just basically say that Maya's depression was not handled well by everybody. And the fact that, everyone else failed her. Maya was trying to deal with her problems post-camp, but it seemed that, especially her mother, didn't really understand Maya's problems, and basically that Maya was just being stupid and all that. And that, Maya was left on her own in a sense. I also talked about Emma's hidden agenda in the Orange Ribbon campaign, and that was it possibly to gain friends, to get back at Raj for his comments about her stupid causes, or both. Emma's hidden agenda. Like what was her purpose? I think that both were correct. And then here's the thing about when I talked about one of the previous ones, I talked about Emma's phase trying to find a boyfriend. Boy crazy phase was because of Rick. I also talked about Emma's clingy phase was due to Rick. With the fact that Emma clinging onto friends. Remember, Emma lost Liberty and Manny as friends because of her pettiness over the fact that Chris was with Liberty, or Liberty wanted Chris. So she had no friends, and Paige's clique dumped her off, and she may have wanted friends because she didn't want to go through a lot of issues alone. That's why she was trying to hang on to Manny as long as possible, because she thought that Manny would never be around her, and she could be easily taken by someone close to Rick's persona. I talked about Maya's season 13 dilemma, the fact that she was cyberbullied, and basically it was all about victim blaming, and how Maya's personality just took a little bit of a dip. And then there was one about blaming Spinner for Rick's demise. I don't know how I described it, because I did something later than that. I did something later about the situation. I think kind of in the same vein. It says, was it warranted for Spinner to be shat on after what he did to Jimmy despite not knowing Rick had a gun? I think I did something like that similarly in one of the latest ones, but I think I changed my tone after 2 months of stuff. My 89 fun public opinion was Jimmy not adjusting to Rick's bullet. The fact that Jimmy, could have easily abduct Rick's bullet and not get hurt. And did he have a chance to? Or did he just, he was paralyzed with fear so much he didn't recognize that Rick was turning his head when he shot? Because if he wasn't pointing straight at Jimmy, he might have missed. I talked about Toby's missed PTSD storylines, especially with the fact that he lost Rick, and he was right there when Rick died from John and Rick's gunfight in a sense. And the fact that after JT dies, there was an episode about Toby's issues, but we never knew from Toby's POV about the fact that maybe he blamed himself for JT's death by saying JT should go after Liberty. And then the 91st one was when I talk about Emma's anger in season 6. I also said Emma's anger was not in defense of JT season 6. I talked about the fact that, why would Emma had to be angry at Manny, like in season 6, pissing off the school after JT's death, because it's like Emma and JT didn't really have many interactions except for the one time that Emma wanted JT and Manny to get together because JT had feelings for Manny. Another CDUO was the Hollingsworth kids getting lack of punishments due to their father. And the basic fact that maybe the Hollingsworths, after all, all 3 kids did something terrible, and Simpson didn't really punish them as much as he should have. And maybe Simpson was scared to run afoul of the new mayor of Toronto and what would happen to him and the school, possibly. I did another CDUO about Throwback Thursday was a bust. I talked about how good it seemed to be, but it was just a reunion episode in the wrong vein, wrapped around the Black Lives Matter situation and trying to throw Frankie out of school because of her racist poster. I did something about an accidents will happen 5, and the 5 that shocks me is that Emma, was anti-abortion and really getting on Manny's nerves, and why Emma may have protected Manny from Craig's tongue lashing. And it was weird that, she came to Manny's defense. And I think Manny was shocked too. And the fact is, maybe Emma wanted to be friends again with Manny because, Emma and Manny did have a fallout. And then I talked about Kevin Smith pushing away Joey and Caitlin. I know I talked about Joey and Caitlin, but the fact is, blaming Kevin Smith for all the problems. that was going on, and why his fanfic, if you will, ruined things. I talk about the I talk about progressions and regressions. Who had the best progressions and regressions in the Emma era, which was from 1 to 7, the Claire era from 8 to 14, and the Maya era in next class. Like, who did it? And I basically talk about my take that people say this character and that character and why I think they're wrong and why they're right. Another unpopular opinion was Maya's depression storyline, why it's not the best ever. I talk about how good Maya's depression storyline is, but it can't be the best ever. And I kind of talk about why Time Stands Still trumps it, in a sense. Another one I did was scapegoating Spinner. As I said, I did one about blaming Spinner for Jimmy's demise, but I mean, scapegoating him in general. I think I was trying to get that point. And then I talked about Frankie's racist poster storyline breakdown. And the breakdown is that, was Frankie wronged with how things were going and why people, escaped punishment when they should be punished just as bad as Frankie, or at least punished to an extent. And of course, number 100 was back to square one about how I took a call back to my first unpopular opinion about the students should be blamed for Rick's demise, in a sense. And, the bullying and all that. So, yeah, you got to think about things. I look at the clock and, wow, I actually did better than I thought I would. Well, I know I could have done 100 storylines in 30 seconds each, would have been 50 minutes, right? Yeah, so I beat that time frame, which is perfect. Sorry for the long-winded ones, but, I mean, you probably want to know my 100 digressing unpopular opinions and all that. Well, / hot takes. So, yeah, there'll be more coming up soon. I just have to think long and hard about things. Anyway, I dropped out. Thanks for watching and have a good day. And don't forget to see the playlist because it is going to be tight, y'all.